can we just do it?
Well, where's the fun in that? Before you die, you'll deliver a message for me.
Yeah, Dangerous Prey started as a slightly different story than what you see. Rob was on vacation, and we kind of got ahead of ourselves plotting up this other story that was going to be kind of a Karate Kid sort of story where Xena takes this young Amazon warrior and takes her on this journey to save the Amazon Queen, and along the way sort of enlightens her with different points of Amazon wisdom. So it was kind of like that whole wax on, wax off thing where young Varya learned a lesson without realizing she had learned it. And Rob came back and didn't like it at all, so we had to throw that out, and I had 2 days to come up with something else. And we decided that we would essentially rip off The Most Dangerous Game, a short story that I think everybody had to read in high school. I know I did. And it became a story about a guy who hunts human beings for sports.
I promised Margaret that I would protect you.
I don't want your protection.
Varya! Are you crazy? If you want to find Margaret's killer and remain in one piece, you'll do what I say when I say it.
When we did Dangerous Prey, we thought of who would be the best director. And Renee.
Absolutely.
I can't remember how it was decided, except you weren't in that much of it. I don't know.
No, actually, I asked you if I could direct again, and it was the last season, and so we both realized that acting and directing wasn't my strong suit. So I was trying to find a way to put me in an episode that was quite Gabrielle-light, and it came right after a hiatus, so I had the ability to do the pre-production before, and then you had the Varya character, and I guess you wanted to show the relationship between Xena and Varya as the mentor-student, and like you said, had the hot head that was trying to learn a lesson and be humbled by the experience of being with Xena, and it just humbled.
It's funny, isn't it?
What
so it was just logistically that worked out best.
It worked out very well that I was only in the bookend of the episode, the very beginning and the very end.
That's an interesting thing about Dangerous Prey is that I don't really have any editing-specific stories to talk about. But I do have an amusing anecdote that I would like to share about working with Renee O'Connor, who, by her very nature, is a fairly shy woman and kind of quiet. So I was a little surprised when she came into the cutting room this one day, and we were working on a sequence that's near the opening of the show where the Amazon Queen has gotten trapped by this little bear claw that her hand is stuck in. And in order to free herself from the trap, she has to rip her hand out of this little manacle. And as we're looking at the scene, and Renee was there working with me after she'd looked at the editor's cut, and she looks at me and she says, "Do you have any flesh-ripping sounds?" I said, "Flesh-ripping sounds?" She goes, "Yeah." So I yelled out to my assistant, Michelle, I said, "Hey, do we have any flesh-ripping sounds?" She goes, "I think we got some on a Herc tape." So off she ran, she comes back in, and we started running these gruesome, horrible flesh-tearing sounds, each one more horrific than the one that preceded it. We finally got to one that was really, really gruesome. And Renee goes, "Oh, gosh, yeah." And I said, "What?" She goes, "That's the one I want." And suddenly my image of Renee got shattered forever.
What am I supposed to do about landing?
Tuck and roll.
Whose idea was it to catapult Varya into space? Well, that would be Rob Tappert, of course. Yeah, that came about by Xena and Varya are in the woods, and we needed to figure out a way to flush them out, and I was having a hard time thinking, well, how do we flush them out of the woods? And Rob Tappert says, well, we'll just start a forest fire. We'll just set the woods on fire. And I thought, can you do that? You know, and apparently you can set parts of New Zealand on fire if you want to. He set a forest fire and flushed them out, and then the question was, well, how do we get them out of the forest fire? and Rob had some catapults laying around that he wasn't using, and said it would be great to catapult her over the flames. And then he kind of got in a, well, actually, Xena tied her to a tree and catapulted her over the flames, and Morlock used a giant wooden catapult to snare her midair in a net. That was all Rob Tappert. That was all his crazy imagination, and it all came out at once. He just thought of it on the phone, and yeah, told me to write it. So turned out great too.
Oh, right. We had that cool catapult over the forest fire.
We had a catapult over a forest fire, and we had a forest fire. Do you remember? It was funny because we shot at 2 different places. Was it in the budget?
Of course, yeah. Of course, that's in the budget, and it laid the groundwork for feeling comfortable at the end for Friend in Need, for doing burns and coming back and reburning the same thing over and over. So, yeah, Renee got those bugs out for us.
What had happened is we had to work in Muriwai, which is a national forest, and we wanted to have a forest fire there. So we put all these flame bars up. Actually, there weren't many at all. I think I had 2 flame bars, and it's just the way the camera was set up with the right lens to make it look like a fire, and then having Lucy run through it and Chanita run through it. And then the rest was filmed at Lion Park with these dead pine trees, and they set it up in the safe zone and just lit it on fire, 2nd unit, with all the stunt doubles running through.
It worked a treat, yeah.
Yeah, it did. Who knew it wasn't in the same place?
Who knew?
Who knew?
The trickery of filmmaking.
I know, I love it.
Xena is the kind of prey I've searched for. She's always anticipating. She creates situations. And just when you think you've got her.
Because we assumed Xena could beat this guy, we couldn't really have them meet face to face during the episode. So it was very challenging to play this sort of extended cat and mouse game between the 2 of them, because we knew as soon as they got face to face and started clashing swords, then she would probably kill him. So yeah, it was a real challenge to sort of keep them at a distance, sort of outsmarting each other, always playing like this massive game of chess 3 moves ahead.
And really, one of the hardest thing that writers have, because nobody, as we always say, God doesn't give with both hands. So some of the best writers who wrote dialogue, they weren't great storytellers, or they weren't great action people. So so to kind of support everybody, we often said, oh, well, let's use this story structure. Let's use this kind of a fight and structure the rest of it. So it was very helpful over the years to have things that we knew we wanted to do, that we had seen as fights and wanted to westernize them, bring them to TV, change them in this way or that, so and make them fresh to a new audience. So certainly borrowing, as we did from Asian movies at the time, was helpful to the writing process, because very, very, very few people can do it all. And envisioning when you've got 3 or 4 fights per episode, and really one big money one, it's hard to do that.
Definitely creates a sense of style, too.
Yep.
I know that towards the end you brought in writers who had never written for the show before, and it just sort of gave everyone an idea of this is the look of the show, and sort of that mystical quality that the Chinese had in their fight scenes,